Hey, Don, the Auction Professor here. It's that time again. I have another What's Sold on eBay this week. It's Sunday. I'm going to try and do one every Sunday from now on. As I said, I'm going to be doing live very, very soon, and I'm going to put a schedule of topics, hopefully, what days we're going to cover which kind of topics, so you can kind of give an idea. It'll be like a schedule for the videos, and I'll try and keep it to a certain time every day. From all the feedback and some of the people who emailed me personally, too, I'm going to have some on the evenings, probably midweek. I'll probably try and do a live broadcast on Wednesdays. Not this coming up Wednesday, but the week after that. Hopefully, I'll do a quick test run probably in the morning and do a quick 5-minute video just to make sure it does go on a week from Wednesday. So that's tentative what I'll be doing. But we're going to hop over to the screen right now, and I will show you some of what we sold on our account.
Here's the first item. I've sold quite a few of these. I've probably got about 10 or so of some of these cards from this series. It's a Kinney Brothers tobacco card. These were actually free, one card per pack of cigarettes back in the 1880s. And these usually sell pretty much all the time for at least $5. These are something you could even find in baseball and comic book collectors. Even comic shows, sometimes you'll find some of these oddball trade cards. And if it's a comic collector, they usually don't know much about them or pay any attention to them. And these are items you can get cheap. I do occasionally go to comic shows, and these are something I do turn up there. Let's see, the next one. These are print ads, and I've talked about cutting things up. These are either from junk magazines from like the 1890s, ripped up covers and things like that. I'll buy them all the time, all day long, and I'll cut out the ads out of the back of the magazines. And literally, these are some of the ads you'll see. I picked out a few of them just to show you. People wonder where you can get some of the paper at. This was literally cut out of a magazine. And magazines that are damaged in poor condition, you can buy fairly cheap, especially at like local auctions and things like that, and just bulk junk paper lots. And you know, you can get big, huge lots of damaged paper for, you know, $5 or $10. And this is some of what I sell. I know they don't sell for a ton of money, but I've got pennies into it. So you're talking at 6 months, it's only 24 cents to list if it's in my first 10,000 listings. And even after that, it's only 30 cents. I'll show you just a couple more so you can kind of get the gist of how it works. But these are the same thing. This one's not even in that good condition. It has some crinkles and some creases and some yellowing. But this came out of a estate sale, old newspaper stacks. There was one from 1870s in there, and I threw it in with the rest of them, and I've got 7 or 8 ads out of it. You can see it's even chipped along the edges there, but I sold $17.50. I got out of that one. Here's another one. Again, these are literally just cutouts out of newspapers and magazines. This one's out of a newspaper. It's only like 2 inches across by 1.5 inches or 2 inches tall. But you can see it's just a small little print ad. Literally, again, as I said, this is a cutout out of a newspaper. Nothing more. That's all this is. And it literally came in a stack of junk newspapers. I get them all the time. If I go to an estate sales through the weeks, every week I go, I get some sort of newspaper stack. Almost every single week I go somewhere. So these are something you can look for. You can find all the time. And again, it's just a little cutout. I literally cut this out with scissors. Next item, I've talked about pencils. You can see they sell very well. I've got a few in here, and this is just in the last couple days. I actually am looking for more pencils now, so I've almost sold out of most of what I had. Let's go on to the next one. This one I literally talked about in one of my haul videos. This one sold right away, $17.50. A nice early postcard, you know, circa 1900, 1910. Used, not in mint condition or anything, but it was a decent postcard. This is kind of hard to tell, but this is actually just a Junko. I think I paid $0.25 or 50 cents for it. It's like a 1960s or 70s Barbie surfboard. May not even be made by Barbie, but these sell all the time. $7.50. I had it up for a little while, so I maybe have like 40 cents into this total. Let's see here. Next item. This is actually cut in half. It's actually been worn so much or opened that it actually split into 2 pieces. This would have been a booklet, but it sold. I actually took $12.50 on this one. I had it up for a little while, but this is one of those penny items. I've got literally nothing into it. Bought a huge lot. Another trade card here. I don't really remember where this one came from. I have literally tens of thousands of these. This would be from 1892. Hires root beer, still in existence. This is an interesting one. It's actually die cut, which means it was cut in the shape of the person. I believe I took $10 for this, and it was up for like, I don't know, 4 months maybe not quite that long. Roller skating labels, again, I talk about these all the time. I took 25 on this one. The person actually made an offer on 2, and I'll show you the other one too. But again, I sell these at least every other day. I sell one lately of the roller skating labels. I've got more going up. I probably have like 600 or 700, I think, up right now. Let's look at the next one. Again, same thing, both from Tampa. You bought them both, $25 a piece. Combined shipping, he paid $3.50. This is another one from Mahal, California. Nothing really special in this one either. It is a real picture. Pretty interesting though. It sold for $34.50 straight out overnight. I listed it that evening, and literally before I woke up, it had already sold. This is just literally an envelope, and I got this in a big bulk lot from someone's attic. And again, these things you can buy all the time. You just have to know where to go and what to look for. Ask people around. Some of this would show up in shows or garage sales or flea markets. You name it, you could find stuff like this. This is literally just an envelope, an empty, unused envelope. Advertising. I took $10 for it. This one was up 6 months, so I have like 30 cents into it. I believe I paid $2 in bulk wise. It probably was a nickel or a quarter or something. I've talked about some of the tickets I've had. I took 70 on this one. I have no idea on some of the tickets. I always just put a real high price on them. Some of the time, probably 10-15% of the time, it'll sell at that price. And then you'll go bickering back and forth. I actually turned down 2 or 3 and then settled. I figured I'd take 70. 2 more sold since I had this and since I listed it. So I had a better idea on price. So $70 was higher than the lower ones, but not quite as high as the mid-range. I have a couple, and this one had a rip too, as you can see, so I was happy with that. Next item, let's see here. Now this one showed up at a coin and stamp show. It's not a coin or stamp. It's not a bill. It's actually an advertising trade card. You just have to know. You got to go to some of these shows, the paper shows, paper events. This one I took, I believe I took $34.50 on it. Again, original price $75. This was up for, I think, like 9 months, so 45 cents max to list. And I think I have $1 or $2 into it. At the stamp and shows, they know the difference. They knew this was just like a fantasy piece. So it wasn't something that they considered to be worth a ton of money. This was in one of the junk bins at a paper show. Not really a junk bin, but like an all-covering area bin that's just a bunch of loose paper. That's not money. That's not stamps. That's just oddball stuff. But again, it sold fairly well. I've got probably a couple thousand whiskey, beer, wine labels. Last year we had a ton that I was lucky enough to get in a huge collection from a collector, old wine labels from the 1870s and 80s. And last year alone we did $3,700 or $3,800 just in German wine labels, not to mention some of the American and French. But I believe last year total we did almost $6,000 just in labels like this. And again, this is a very small portion of what we sell. It's literally just a sample unused label from someone's collection. This kind of item's easier to find than you would think because people collect whiskey and just bar memorabilia all the time, so it's easy to run across these. This is even newer. When I first bought these, I had no clue, had no knowledge on them whatsoever. It was just a huge amount of stuff for like 30 or 40 bucks I think I spent. And there was some Jack Daniels in here, which I figured I'd get some good money for. I've sold a few Jack Daniels early ones. There's so many different varieties, so it's hard to tell. But I ended up making a ton of money, and now I look for these all the time too. But labels do very well for us. I sell something like this modern day one probably a couple times a week, every single week. Next item. This is a 4-card set. This was out of a sewing box collector. It's sewing material. He had a O.N.T. Clark spool cotton thread cabinet and some other things from an estate that I went to. And I think I spent like $10 on this set from him along with some other stuff for that $10. And I took $75 for it. It wasn't up a huge, very long time. And this one, I've had 2 or 3 of this set, so I knew it was worth something right off the bat. I would have probably spent 15 or 20 on the set had I needed to. But again, $75. This is on an Oscar Wilde one here. This person down here, it's the aesthetic movement. That's supposed to be Oscar Wilde, and you can see Jumbo Aesthetic, it says on the bottom right. You just got to know some of these things, but the aesthetic movement's very hot. Oscar Wilde stuff always sells. Any card or anything like that with Oscar Wilde on it, I always get a ton of money for. I think the least I took for an Oscar Wilde card was $57.50. And you can see I even put Oscar Wilde on the title. Let's see here, next one. These are tiny little die cuts, probably German Dresden area from like 1880s, 1890s. Anthropomorphic, which is an animal dressed or acting like a human. And these went to Japan. $24.50 is what I sold them for. That's an actual quarter in the image, so you can see how small these are. But these sell very regularly for us. I sell a ton to Japan. It's a big market. Anything mod Kish in Japan, say 1980s and down in Japan, sells very well. I just ran into a gentleman the other day at a thrift store, and he literally lives overseas and does tours and stuff, and he'll buy a ton of clothing, vintage clothing here at thrift stores, and then take 10, 15 suitcases back with him to Japan when he does the tours, and then sells them there for a ton of money straight out in cash deals, or he'll put them up on eBay. But that's an interesting item, interesting area. We always do well in anthropomorphic items. Even up into the 1950s and 60s, those sell as well, too. Even postcards or toys, anything along that line. Next item, I talk about sheet music. This one was up for, I don't know, 6, 7 months. So, I have 35 cents max in a listing it. But this was up for a little while, sold. I was very happy with it. Sinatra stuff sells for the most part. Next item, early book. I talk about books quite often. I do a lot of the earlier ones with book plates in them and things like that, engraved. This isn't a very early one, 1852. I paid $1 for it. Again, book lots like this, I can usually get junk piles of books like this at state sales and stuff for $1 or so. Civil War one, I don't believe I listed this one. No, I listed this one in the books, but I did put Civil War era book in the title. So, that's what it is. Let's see here, next one, and it did sell for $57.50 too. I did not take any offers on this one. Jewelry wise, I sold a few pieces of jewelry yesterday, so I thought I'd just throw them in here. This is sterling Saki. I hadn't heard of the brand. These are something I paid $1 or $2 for. I sold 2 pieces to the same person. I got 35 out of the 2. And again, I throw prices up there, so they mean really nothing to me. This is something that I got $1 or so into for each item, maybe $2 at the most in the jewelry. I don't usually pay more than that at all, ever, for anything jewelry-wise. But they usually sell in the 15, 25, 30 range. So, but that one sold for, as I said, 35 along with this one here. And this was just on a cheapo string kind of wiring thing. But it is sterling as well, too. You can see the 925. Not the best photos, but some of the reflections are awful and hard to take pictures of. But that's turquoise and then sterling again with the earring, and then it's a bracelet. So the person got a pretty good deal. I got a pretty good deal. I believe I paid $1 for this set, maybe $2 for the other one. So 35 for the pair. This is a earthquake postcard, which I did show in another video, one of my haul videos. It was up literally overnight, $17.50. It sold straight out, full price. Book-wise, again, this is just an oddball one. This is actually a second edition even, but it's Masonic book. It's a history of Masonic, the Masons and the whole works. It's interesting. It's an early one, as I said, for this type of era, and it sold very well. So $34.50 is what I took for it. I'm more prone to not FBA some of this kind of stuff because they'll sell much better on eBay. There's a bigger market for some of the vintage collectibles for certain specific groups and people as opposed to titles specific that you'd see like on Amazon. So you just have to know which sells better in which format. But we do a ton of books on Amazon too. It just depends on what it is. If it's a price guide or something along that line for like antiques and collectibles, we always sell those on Amazon because we always get 2 or 3 times what we would on eBay since eBay is a collectibles market. So most people know what it is more so and wouldn't need to buy the books off of eBay. So Amazon's the best place for those. Plus, it's more overseas people buying them from Amazon. Postcard, I believe I showed this in one of the haul videos as well. Even with the crease there, I still took $27.50. This one sold overnight from the day it was listed again. Another one of those quick sells. More pencils. I took 10. These had been up for a little while, and I had bought a whole bunch of these. I had a ton of these, and they're almost gone. I think I have one or two more lots still up and active that are number 3 pencils. But again, $10, quick move. I've got, maybe 20 of these I paid for $1, so, I can't complain no matter what. I talked about labels. This was in one of the haul videos. I took 25 on this one, and people ask why people buy things. Who's going to buy that? The person's name who bought this is Lime City or something like that. They buy everything with the word lime or has lime fruit packaging or anything. Everything. So that's just another example. And a lot of items you'll see that have a last name on it, the specific name for the company that made the label. People who have that same last name buy it. People from the city buy it. Somebody from Ashland, Wisconsin could have bought this too. There's hundreds of options for whatever I sell. But again, these are items that, could sell to anybody. There's so many options for people to buy things like this. These little tiny labels that most people wouldn't think of. And again, I've had comments that, who's going to buy that? Who's going to want that little thing? And why would somebody spend that on it? You would be shocked if you would see all the items we sell. Items like this sell all the time for very good money. $25 is what I got for this label. And it's only, 2 3/4 inches across by like 2.5 inches tall. This is a tiny piece of paper, and it even has some smudging damage on the face of it, and it still went for $25. They sell all the time. I sell these daily. So, you got to think outside the box and take some chances with things that you would never in your wildest dreams think would sell for that. 4 or 5 years ago, I would have laughed if you said I was going to get $25 for this tiny damaged label, but that's exactly what happens. So, you live and you learn new areas, and you move on. This is a perfect example of why I don't do as much clothing, the cheaper clothing. Why mess with the shirt or pants or anything when I can sell a tiny, tiny label that I have nothing into? This was bought in a big, huge lot, 600 items I got, but you see, they sell. So give it a shot. Keep an eye out and ask. Again, this is something you're going to have to ask if people have, junk lots of paper. Was anybody to collect labels? Does he have any, product items or old boxes or anything like that? That's where you're going to find this kind of stuff. And again, anywhere you can find this stuff. I think this was in a haul video too. This is Frederick, Maryland. I took 50 on this. Who knows what it's worth? There is an account to compare it to. It was up for 3 days, and I said, $50. Usually if there's something really scarce on something like this, they're going to sell fairly quick, at least in the real picture postcards. Again, Glenn Miller I've talked about. I'm going to drill some more Glenn Miller into everybody here. Glenn Miller, I sold 14 Glenn Miller records this week alone. Just Glenn Miller. Not talking about any of the other records that I sold. We sold quite a few. I think this week maybe we did like 127 records this past week total. And that counts my Discogs and Amazon. So, that's more than 10 a day of records of any type. And this was a little slower week for us on records than usual. And I've listed a bunch up on eBay, and I haven't had a chance to get them up on the other sites still too. So that total probably would have been another 20 or so higher had we had them cross promoted all the way with everything. But this one here, I believe I took $27.50 on it. Again, I look at prices constantly before I take an offer, so I'll go back and look at comps and see what the last couple went for. This one was up for a little while, so you always want to make sure you're pricing it correctly. And when I take the offers or I'm looking at the offers, I always know where I want to be. And if I don't know where I want to be, I'm going to go research that and pull some comps from it. And so $27.50 was a fair price on this. Vocalion, this label you don't see Glenn Miller on very often, so I just threw out a price out there. Who knows what it would have went for, but another one had sold, so I was very confident in taking the $27.50 that I was on the high end of what these are worth. The other one went for like $20, so let's see here. Comic books again, these were in a big lot that I had, not in a super condition, but the person was happy. I took $36 for this. So comic books sell. It just depends on the ones you have and the condition. Let me show you a little close-up so you can see the spine. Could have been a little darker image, but you know, this was just put up by one of my new photographers. Again, we've got 4 people besides the 4 members of my family that do this. Everybody gets paid as a payroll. We have an accountant that does payroll. So anyway. Postcard, I took 25. This is up for like 9 months. So, you know, I figured after 9 months, I will take 25. This is a World War I propaganda, and it went to someone in Washington, D.C., a historical collector of some sort. Now, this is new, and I buy these at thrift stores, too, and I buy them in huge bulk lots sometimes after Christmas or from closed-down businesses and stuff. These are probably really not that old. These are probably from like the 80s or so, I would guess. They're made in Canada. It doesn't look super old. Literally looks like 70s or 80s, I would guess. I took $10 for these. This came from a huge box lot at a, I think it was an auction that one of my pickers had gone to. And he brought me, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vintage Christmas cards, probably from the late 60s through the 80s-ish. And most people don't think much about the newer ones, but if you have a whole bunch of them, and it had the envelopes, the whole works. So these are something fully usable. It had glitter on them. They're really nice cards. Somebody's going to have a nice use of these, whether they use them for art projects or actually mailing them. So I do buy these all the time, and I'll buy, you know, close out brand new Christmas cards and stuff like that too. They always sell, even if they're old, you know, 10, 15-year-old ones. If they're still sealed in the envelopes and they're still usable, you're going to get some good money for them. Average, you know, $1 a card is about average, which you should sell them for. So buy them in big bulk for a few cents a piece if you're going to buy them. And again, these are things you can find at auctions or even garage sales or estate sales and in people's closets and stuff. And this is stuff that most people walk right by thinking, it's who cares about this stuff. I sell single Christmas cards from the 50s, 60s, and 70s for 30, 40, 50, even $60 depending on the topic. Like a 1950s Santa Claus riding in a spaceship, or, you know, kids wearing 1950s space suits, you know, from, you know, that era. That kind of stuff sells, or Halloween cards and things like that. Next item, I've talked about Raphael Tuck. I took $12.50 on this one. It's nothing special, but you can see Raphael Tuck there. It's been used, 1885, somebody wrote on the back. But it's a very nice card. There's a few little smudges on it, but $12.50, nothing special. This came out of a postcard collection, actually. It's not a postcard, it's just like a Christmas card. Another comic book. This is an oddball title. I go a lot with the Outsider and local small press printings. A lot of people pass these up. So for us, it's harder to find the superhero comics because there's so many big-time dealers and collectors, you know, putting ads in and swooping in and getting them all. So I get the ones a lot of times that people just don't want to mess with, and that's the oddball ones, underground, what they would be called. And they still do sell. I took, I think, $12 plus shipping for this, so it was a pretty decent price. I think I spent like 50 cents or something on these, maybe even $4 for $1. Sometimes I can buy these oddball junk title comic books for a huge box of them for $5 or $10 at a garage sale or somewhere like that. Again, because most people don't know who these people are. They just look like junk. They think there's some new comic crap, but they're not. They're actually fairly decent. I've sold some of this type for hundreds of dollars even, so... next one, more Glenn Miller. As I said, Glenn Miller always sells. We sold, I think, 14, as I said, this week alone, just Glenn Miller. So I was very happy. Sunrise Serenade, this one always sells for us. Moonlight Serenade's on the back. In fact, I'll show you the next one, what it is. A second copy of that same record. You can see my numbers were different. That was an A11. This one's an A9. That's how I determine and can tell which one's which if there's any grading issues. But it sold fairly quick, sold full price just like the last one did. So it was like $95. We got out of 2 copies of this. And again, I got $1 each into these. And I hadn't had them up for very long. Along with In the Mood, Sunrise Serenade, and Moonlight Serenade always sell for, say, 30 to 40. So Glenn Miller is something I always look for. There's probably a top 10 Glenn Miller 78 list. Maybe I'll put one together for you. And pop it down below in the description here in one of my videos. But I'm going to start giving you some top 10s of what I look for and what you could look for as well, too. But again, some of this stuff you're going to have to ask for. Even records people don't put out when they're 78s. I'll I don't know how many times I went to a garage sale or estate sale and they didn't put the records out. They figured big band's not going to sell. Everybody looks for rock or R&B or soul or stuff like that, and they won't put the gospel out or they won't want much for them. The big band ones are the places I go to first these days. Because you got a good chance, if they're big band collectors, for them to collect the earlier jazz too. And back in when these were pressed in the 30s and such forth, people could still buy used records at record stores and stuff, so they would show up with World War I records in their collection too. So whenever I go to a big band era swing, I always go out to those, and I always find earlier ones in there too. That's just a fact. Little known or not, but that is a fact.
Well, there you go. That's some of what we've sold. That's just from the main account that I share. We've sold, oh geez, last week I want to say like 296 items sold last week. We had one person buy 57 or 58 items, all trade cards, and another one bought 27 postcards, all in the same city area. So, you know, it's two people. That's literally almost a third of it from two different people. So it sounds like a lot, but you know, that's what it was. And again, this doesn't include any of the Amazon Discogs or any of the other items we sell. But that's what we sold. Hope you learned something. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe and tell a friend.